Chapter 20. After Cain had gone to the land of dark soil, and his children had multiplied, there was one of them, whose name was Cain, son of Lamech the blind, who slew Cain. Satan came to Cain in his childhood, and made a variety of trumpets and horns, and string instruments, cymbals and psalteries, and lyres and harps and flutes, and Cain played them at all times and at every hour. And when he played them, Satan came to them, so that from among them were heard beautiful and sweet sounds that seized the heart with delight. And then he gathered many crowds to play on them, and when they played, it greatly pleased the children of Cain, who fanned themselves to flames of sin among themselves, and they burned with fire, while Satan inflamed their hearts with one another, and lust increased among them. Satan also taught Cain to make strong drink out of corn. Cain used this to bring together crowd upon crowd in houses of drink, and brought into their hands all kinds of fruits and flowers, and they drank together. Cain did this to multiply sin greatly. He also acted with pride, and taught the children of Cain to commit all manner of the grossest wickedness, which they did not know until then. And he put them up to all kinds of deeds, which they did not know of before. Then when Satan saw that they obeyed Cain, and listened to him in everything he told them, he rejoiced greatly, and he increased Cain's understanding until he took iron, and with it made weapons of war. Then, when they were drunk, hatred and murder increased among them. One man would use violence against another, and Satan would teach him evil in that one man would take the other man's children and defile them before him. And when men saw they were vanquished and saw that others were not beaten, those who were beaten came to Cain and took refuge with him, and he made them part of his group. Then sin increased among them greatly, until a man married his own sister, or daughter, or mother, and others, or the daughter of his father's sister, first cousin, so that there was no more distinction of relationship, and they could no longer discern what was sin and what was not, but always were wicked, and the earth was defiled with sin. And they angered God the judge, who had created them. But Cain gathered together groups and groups that played on horns and on all the other instruments we have already mentioned, at the foot of the holy mountain. They did that so the children of Seth who were on the holy mountain would hear it. But when the children of Seth heard the noise, they wondered, and came by companies, and stood on the top of the mountain to look at those below. This went on an entire year. At the end of that year, Cain saw that they were being won over to him little by little. Satan entered into him, and taught him to make the elements for dyeing garments of various patterns, and made him understand how to dye crimson and purple and whatnot. And the sons of Cain who worked at all of this shone in beauty and gorgeous apparel, and they gathered together at the foot of the mountain in splendor, with horns and gorgeous dresses, and horse races, and they were committing all manner of disgusting acts. Meanwhile, the children of Seth, who were on the holy mountain, prayed and praised God in the place of the hosts of angels who had fallen. God had called them angels because he rejoiced over them greatly. But after this time, they no longer kept his commandment, nor were held by the promise he had made to their fathers. But they relaxed from their fasting and praying, and from the counsel of Jared their father. And they kept on gathering together on the top of the mountain to watch the children of Cain, from morning until evening. And they watched what they did, and they looked at their beautiful dresses and ornaments. Then the children of Cain looked up from below, and saw the children of Seth, standing in numbers on the top of the mountain, and they called to them to come down to them. But from above them, the children of Seth said, "We don't know the way." Then Cain, the son of Lamech, heard them say they did not know the way, and he began to think to himself of ways he might bring them down. Then Satan appeared to him by night, saying, "There is no way for them to come down from the part of the mountain on which they live. But when they come out tomorrow to watch, say to them, 'Come to the western side of the mountain. There you will find a stream of water that comes down to the foot of the mountain, between two hills. That marks the way. Come down that way to us.'" Then when it was day, Gideon blew the horns and beat the drums below the mountain, as he was accustomed to do. The children of Seth heard it, and came as they used to. Then Gideon said to them from down below, "Go to the western side of the mountain. There you will find the way to come down." But when the children of Seth heard these words from him, they went back into the cave to Jared to tell him all they had heard. Then when Jared heard it, he was grieved because he knew that they would defy his wishes. After this 100 men of the children of Seth gathered together and said among themselves, "Come, let us go down to the children of Cain and see what they do, and enjoy ourselves with them." But when Jared heard this of the 100 men, his very soul was moved, and his heart was grieved. He then stood with great emotion in the middle of them, and earnestly compelled them by the blood of Abel the just, and said, "Let no one of you go down from this holy and pure mountain, in which our fathers have ordered us to live." But when Jared saw that they did not listen to his words, he said to them, "My good, innocent, and holy children, you must understand that once you go down from this holy mountain, God will not allow you to return to it again." He again adjured them, saying, "I plead with you by the death of our father Adam, and by the blood of Abel, of Seth, of Enos, of Cain, and of Mahalalel, to listen to me. Do not go down from this holy mountain, because the moment you leave it, life and mercy will be taken from you, and you shall no longer be called children of God, but children of the devil." But they would not listen to his words. Enoch was already grown up at that time, and in his zeal for God, he stood and said, "Hear me, you large and small, young and old sons of Seth. When you transgress the commandment of our fathers and go down from this holy mountain, you shall not come up here again forever." But they rose up against Enoch and would not listen to his words, but they went down from the holy mountain. And when they looked at the daughters of Cain, at their beautiful figures, and at their hands and feet, dyed with color, and the tattoos on their faces that ornamented them, the fire of sin was set ablaze in them. Then Satan made them look most beautiful before the sons of Seth, as he also made the sons of Seth appear the most handsome in the eyes of the daughters of Cain, so that the daughters of Cain lusted after the sons of Seth like ravenous beasts, and the sons of Seth lusted after the daughters of Cain until they committed disgusting and disgraceful acts with them. But after they had fallen into this defilement, they returned by the way they had come, and tried to ascend the holy mountain. But they could not, because the stones of that holy mountain were on fire, flashing before them, and prevented them so that they could not go up again. And God was angry with them, and turned from them because they had come down from glory, and because of this had lost and forsaken their own purity and innocence, and were fallen into the defilement of sin. Then God sent his word to Jared, saying, "These of your children, whom you once called my children, have broken my commandment, and have gone down to the house of damnation and sin. Send a messenger to those that are left, so that they will not go down and be lost." Then Jared wept before the Lord, and asked him for mercy and forgiveness. But he wished that his soul might depart from his body, rather than hear these words from God about his children that went down from the holy mountain. But he followed God's order, and preached to them not to go down from that holy mountain, and not to hold relations with the children of Cain. But they did not listen to his message, and they would not obey his advice.